positive note. So we're going to be looking at an overview of divorce, where to start, the importance of positive communications, negotiation and mediation, how to divorce with kindness, and how to create, start and build your new life. And I have got two great people with me today to chat to you all. So we've got Tosh Brittan, also known as the Divorce Goddess. So in 2014, Tosh started her Divorce Goddess blog. Through her own divorce, and also as being a child of divorced parent, she chose kindness as the foundation of her divorce, and she's now a life coach, author and podcaster. And you may have seen her because she's been featured in various publications and shows. And then we also have Rebecca Hawkins. So Rebecca is a family lawyer and resolution accredited mediator with Mediation Now. Mediation is designed to help families who are experiencing trauma or disagreement to talk things through and reach an agreement that works for them. So thank you both for joining us this evening. And I think we're going to get kick-start it with Rebecca. Thanks, Rebecca.
Hi, everybody. So I've got a couple of slides to go through first, because I think it would be really helpful to see an overview of what you can do outside of the court, because court is the nuclear option and is reserved for some people who won't be able to settle things between themselves, and that's okay. There are some disputes that will need to be sorted in court, but the majority don't need to be. So whilst I'm a lawyer and a mediator, I'm also an arbitrator, and I offer private FDRs, private opinions. So I'm just going to go through with you the options that you've all got when you start to think about separation and how you do things. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm not very good at this technology, so you will have to bear with me while I...
That's not bad.
Is it working yet? Right, so what can you see? Can you see my... Let me just start that. Oh, this is where I get all...
Don't stress.
Right. Slideshow. Start from beginning. There we go. Oh. So the first important point is to remember, and I think that Tosh will talk to you about this, it's self-care and setting intentions. And if you are, dead fish can't float. It takes somebody with courage and kindness to do things the right way and to push themselves upstream and to be different. And to be different from the norm. So that's the overriding foundation for non-court options. It takes courage and commitment to do that, and hard work as well, but it is worth it. So that you have various options when you separate. I've tried to color code these, from blue being the least confrontational, maybe the easiest, maybe the most cost effective, to red at the top, where somebody else has control over your decision making. So at the bottom, the two blue ones, you can do it yourself. You could do it yourself at the kitchen table, or you can do it yourself with some help, either from a divorce coach, from your lawyer, from a mediator. But you take bits of help, but largely you're able to talk with each other, and you can do it yourself and have it implemented at a later date. And then you have the green options, which are doing it with more help. So you might come to somebody like me as a mediator. I'm not going to give you legal advice. I'm not going to say what you should do or what you need to do. I'm going to give you lots of information. I'm going to help you identify options. I'm going to help you work through those so that you know how realistic they are, what the consequences might be. Something that you think might work may have unintended consequences. So we work all the way through those options. We will look at financial disclosure if you're dealing with your property. So we would help you format that and make sure you're comfortable with all the figures that are being discussed. And then you have collaborative family practice, slightly higher there, where it's kind of a mixture. So we use the skills that we've got in mediation, that we acquire in mediation, but we're acting as your lawyers, but we do everything together. So we don't send lots of letters. Everything is done in person through meetings together. So it's the kind of the next step from mediation on your own, although you can bring your lawyers to that, to having constant support and immediate access to advice in the collaborative setting. And then you can see we start to get to those warmer colours where you are giving away a little bit more control over your destiny and your outcomes. So you are looking at solicitors negotiating on your behalf, where you may feel that you have to take their advice and you have to adopt certain positions, and that can be tricky. Or you have what we call a private FDR, financial dispute resolution hearing, or an early neutral evaluation in children cases, where you're employing somebody to give you a legal opinion. And so it can form the basis of negotiations, but it is, again, somebody giving you quite an indication of what's likely to happen were you to take the next step. Then we go up to private judging and arbitration, where you hand over your case. Now, if you're looking at, if you can't decide what to do and you really do need some input from somebody else, then this is probably a better option than pressing that red button straight away. You can ask an arbitrator to make decisions about particular issues or all of your case. The beauty of arbitration is you choose your court, you choose your venue, you choose your arbitrator, you choose what they make a decision about, and it's more cost effective and it's so much quicker. And as I say, you have more control over that. And then at the top, we get to adjudication, where you have absolutely no control over timescale, no control over judge, no control over cost. You are really putting yourselves in the hands of the court. So I come from the my main work is in the green area, so I'm mediating generally. And when I start working with clients, I might start by looking at this with them, either in an assessment meeting or in a mediation session. So some of you may be at the number 1 pre-contemplation, number 2 contemplation, or number 3 preparation stage. So you may have an inkling that something isn't quite right, but not really at the stage to do anything about it. You might be thinking that things aren't right and I do need to do something about it, which is the contemplation stage. Or you might be taking active steps, possibly by attending this webinar about how I might do things. And you are going to go through that cycle many, many times on your journey through separation. And the point of going through this slide is to show you that that's okay. There are going to be times when you're able to deal with things, and there are going to be times when you're not. And it doesn't matter which process you're in, that will apply to all of those options, whether you're with Lisa as your lawyer, whether you're with me as your mediator, whether you're with Tosh as your coach. There are times in this journey that you are going to have to probably accept that you're not right at that stage, and you fall back, you relapse into talking to each other in a particular way, getting stuck, and that's really normal. And so mediation, arbitration, your lawyer can tailor your process to which stage you're at, but knowing which stage you're at, accepting it, understanding that it may take a little while, will give you better results at the end and help you really to own some of those outcomes, own your decision making, and let you make better decisions, take you out of the mind monkeys that Tosh is going to talk about later, take you out of that immediate panic fright mode and allow you to take some time to make decisions, because you can go back to the start again and it's okay. I'm just going to move on to my last slide, which is very similar, but
Can I just interrupt? I just wanted to say this is really great, and what came to me is this whole cycle is like life, and and I think sometimes we help us understand better as well the sort of cycle we're going through, although it's about divorce, that actually this is about life, and if we can find other events in life where you've sort of gone through the sort of contemplation, the preparation, the action, whatever it is. This might, it's just jumped into my head, this might even be like a family holiday you've been on, and it's thinking about the whole holiday, it's January, maybe thinking about prepare for the holiday, you have the you know, the action, making sure everybody's okay on holiday, on the maintenance, and relapse. So you might have a family argument. I mean, this stuff has all been going on. So how do you learn from it? I think, you know, it's an opportunity for you to learn to do things better, and where you have a choice to do things better as well. So every time you go, if you need to go around that cycle twice or three or many times, as you quite rightly said, that, you know, just if you can learn from it. And yeah, and hopefully, yeah, we're going to talk about that. So sorry, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, and that's really right, Tosh, because some of the things we talk about in mediation isn't just about the nuts and bolts and making the decisions about whether you should have Johnny for tea on a Tuesday, or whether the house is going to be split 50-50. It's not just about those decisions. It's about learning different, hopefully better ways of communicating. But you are going to fall into those old patterns because that's what you do. And I think I read somewhere, you know, when you're teaching a child to eat solids, they have to try broccoli something like 36 times before they will accept the taste or flavor or texture of broccoli. It's no different when you are changing your relationship and how that's going to work. It's still a relationship, it's just going to be a different one. You may have a little dance that you do every time you talk about money, and it always ends the same way. So this is about learning from that dance. What didn't work? How could I say that differently? Because that really gets results. So you are, I don't think I've seen anybody yet who has not gone through that cycle more, less, you know, only once. So yeah, that's really important. This is life. And the same, it is probably repeating more of the same, but it's really important because it will set the foundations for how you do this, which, as I say, I know Tosh is going to talk about, and where you are on this ladder. And people use this ladder in sessions to write notes on, to say where they are at any given time, because it's a really visual way of showing the other person, this is where I am at the moment. This ladder is written about separation, but it could be about anything. So it's a nice visual way to say to somebody, just hold on a minute, because this is where I am. So I will talk to you more about mediation a little bit later. I would imagine if anybody has any questions about how that works and what we do lots of work on communication, co-parenting moving forward. But I think back to Lisa.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. And that's a really good point. I forgot to mention at the beginning, so thanks for that. If you've got any questions, if you can pop them either in a private message or in the Q&A box, and then at the end, what we'll do is we'll run through as many of the questions as we can, and hopefully ensure that we've got enough time to get through all of the questions that you might have. So please do just pop them in the text box. If you don't want everybody to see them, you can put them in the Q&A box. Okay, Tosh, over to you.
I'll unmute. So I just wanted to talk about the communication bit as well, and linking in with Rebecca and mediation, and how, before I kind of start my thing, it's just kind of came to me that, you know, communication before mediation, your communication with your ex doesn't have to start in the room. You can kind of do that warm up. And I know when we were going through, my ex and I were going through mediation, we kind of gave each other sort of 5 minutes or 10 minutes, depending on where we were, to actually sort of say hello to each other before a mediation, any meeting that we had to both be party to. So we had sort of broken that sort of that whole thing about, you know, when are we going to start talking to each other, and we'd like, have you had a good week, you know, how the children been, you know, and there was just a general conversation that happened. And I think if we're talking about communication and mediation, and afterwards, I say this, I think probably on all of these, is to thank your ex or your spouse, current spouse, like for showing up and for doing the work, because in all of this, to stay out of court, it really is about you showing up for yourself firstly, and I'm going to explain a bit and you know, moving forwards, but in actually appreciating that your soon to be ex or spouse is also showing up to do the work as well. And you know, whatever anybody might be going through, sort of whether they've been sleeping well or they're just feeling really stressed or anxious or whatever's been going on, they've had a bad morning with the kids, whoever had the kids that morning, it's just to be sort of aware that you are two human beings showing up to do good, positive work, and you're being held in a space by somebody obviously lovely like Rebecca, and with lots of tea as well.
Yeah, lots of green tea.
Lots of green tea. Yeah, exactly. No coffee, no sugary drinks before you go, right? And make sure you have breakfast so you're not hangry by the time you turn up to mediation.
Yeah, isn't that, we've done a few of these, haven't we? And did you have an acronym for that?
HALT.
Yeah, it's called, there's a HALT one, but I put an I in because I used to work with, so I did quite a lot of work with teaching mindfulness to cancer patients, and they were going, what about ill? Why is ill not in there? And I was like, okay, so it's hungry, angry, ill, lonely, tired, and just check in with yourself. And I always suggest that families put this on their fridge. So their children, if their children are grumpy or teenagers are grumpy, they can go like, how are you feeling? And they can just point, they don't even have to talk. And then you kind of can get a grasp of where they are and how they're feeling. And so, you know, a good check-in is just, how am I feeling before I go into mediation? You know, is this going to affect my ability to communicate a little bit more mindfully, be a bit more less stressed, you know, kind of like, you know, body language with the arms and everything, and just being a bit more aware of how you are. Yeah. Right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Right, so we're at the end. I'm just going to whiz through back. Right, so how to move forwards and through and beyond divorce. So we are in January, obviously, and you know, I know social media is full of like, you know, goals, intentions, commitments, and we all get really, really excited and we go, right, this is what I'm going to do. And I think this is a bit like, you know, when we first decide to get a divorce, it's a bit like, oh my God, we've got to do this and we've got to do that. And actually what I did this year is I actually took a step back and I just thought, no, I'm just gonna wait for all the noise and all the rushing, and everybody's making this and goals and, you know, New Year's intentions, and I'm just gonna kind of feel into how I want my year to go. And what I've done is you're going to be sent a 28-page, if you weren't aware, if you didn't see my post on Instagram, it's a sort of a goal setting workbook for 2023, and there's lots of space and suggestions and thoughts for you to get really clear on this week ahead. And I've used it before in webinars as well. And I guess kind of, you know, what I would suggest is that where you are now is not where you are going to be in the future. And I think it's very easy, and Rebecca mentioned the mind monkeys, you know, I call them the divorce mind monkeys, DMMs, and they feature very heavily in my book, which is coming out hopefully this January. And about actually, you know, what is the noise and the chatter and the, you know, and the sort of the pressure on you to get it right, to stick to your intention. And actually it's just about small steps that work for you. And that's a bit about me, which we'll probably get on the slide. Oh, hang on, where are we going? And it's probably good to ask you, what is stopping you from setting a goal? And I was speaking to a client yesterday, and she is on the point of thinking about getting some estate agents around to her house, and she was like, I don't even want to begin to start looking at what my future life is going to be like, because I'm just in such a haze. I'm in overwhelm, and I don't know if anybody else is in overwhelm as well who's listening. You might want to comment, like, just to get a feel of where everybody is. And you know, the thought of actually getting out of this in one piece and feeling like you can have a life beyond this can sometimes be really difficult to see. So, and you know, the sort of wood for the trees. So actually it's about being really kind to yourself and just going, well, what can I do now? And if I'm not being busy, it's like being a human being as opposed to being a human doing, which many people are, and especially around divorce, it's like, oh my God, I've got to get it done. Like the pressure is actually just like getting really clear, what are your fears, you know, and they might be financial fears, they might be like, where am I going to be living? And it's just understanding that it's okay to have those fears as well. It's like you're not getting it wrong for feeling fearful. You're not getting it wrong because you don't know what you're doing and you don't have a blueprint for divorce. And, you know, as much as being a divorce coach or, you know, lawyer, family lawyer or mediator, we would love, we would be we'd be putting our feet up on a desert island if we had the magic panacea to like making it really easy and simple and pain-free. But what I think we'll all agree is that actually it's about doing the work. And I say the work, and we're probably thinking I'm too tired of my divorce brain to do the work. But actually, it's about doing the work on yourself. It's really, Lisa mentioned self-care. It's about noticing what are those limiting thoughts from holding you back. And I was just making some notes, and it could be that your ex probably for quite a long time may have told you that you are no good, or have been putting you down. You may have been in a very controlling relationship. You might be in a very challenging, difficult relationship with somebody, and maybe you don't have the confidence and you're like, literally, I don't know how to start. And it's okay not to know where to start. And that's why I decided to put the workbook in today, because I was just like, how did I feel? And I was like, I just needed somebody to hold my hand and just to go, I'm just gonna just give you some, you know, a framework on which to build what you think you'd like to have happen in your future. And maybe that you had parents that put you down. Maybe, you know, maybe you like from an early, you know, from childhood, an early point in childhood, you were just never supported, and maybe you don't have the confidence, and then you got married and somebody else took on that mantle of being critical of you. And it's just, you know, but where you are now is absolutely where you are now, and it's about being really kind with your words, okay, really gentle with your words, and just notice. I had somebody today, and every time they come on the Zoom call they go, I'm so sorry, and I'm like, you just got, please stop apologizing. Just please don't, you don't have to say sorry to me, like it's okay. And so if you find yourself saying sorry, and I get this, because I was that person who used to walk around going, oh, you're such an idiot, you're such this, such that. And I was like, what? And somebody said to me, what are you doing? And so noticing, first of all, kindness is about actually being gentle and kind to yourself and talking to yourself in a really like a gentle, nourishing way. Yeah. Forgive yourself for not knowing what to do, for not getting it right. So the mind monkeys are, and I share in my book, Kindness for Conflict, they are responsible for you not getting any sleep, waking up early, not knowing what to do, feeling break. I'm sure there should be something, the others I hopefully will nod, there needs to be a sort of diagnosis about divorce fog, because when you are going through it, it can literally just feel like there is so much going on. And just being very, I'm just going to see if somebody's, and just notice, and in my book, you can work through it. So it'll ask you, what are your fears? What is stopping you? And then you can actually start thinking to yourself, well, if somebody gave me 3 magic wishes or a little genie lamp and said, right, go for it, what would I like to do? Yeah. And we get so caught up in this is my final figure, you know, or what's going to happen? Am I going to be able to sell the house? Am I going to be able to live? You know, where am I going to live? We get so caught up that we forget that there is a life beyond this process. But actually starting to do the work on yourself now, whilst you're going through the process, rather than waiting till you got the, you know, the degree absolute in your hand, is actually going, actually, I'm just going to work through this. Does that make sense? So yeah, the divorce of my monkeys, they're just, that's the chatter in your mind asking you to question things. And I would just like to say that if something doesn't feel right, it's not right, okay? So get good at checking in with yourself. How do I feel? Like, and your confidence may be 0, but the more you start checking in with yourself, how does this feel? Could I possibly hope to go on a beautiful holiday or go to a festival this year? Or one of my clients the other day got a divorce tattoo. You know, it's like, yeah, put all these things on your list. So I'm going to be talking about this. Okay. So intentions, writing your intentions, and anybody who works with me know that one of the first things I ask people to do is to write an intentions, and we go into the whole thing around their divorce and their future life. But so if you just want to get your head around what are they, and how to get started, they are your commitment to yourself going forwards. Like I commit to looking after myself. I commit to looking after my emotional and mental and physical well-being. You know, I commit to, you know, maybe trying meditating, you know, even if it's just 5 minutes every day. Maybe it's something like I commit to eating healthy food. We were talking about this earlier about trying to reduce sugar. You know, I commit to being, Lisa's laughing. Why are you laughing, Lisa? Come on, show us. Show everybody. Go on. Love a Yorkie bar. So, you know, what is your commitment? You know, your commitment to yourself is, my intention is I'm going to show up prepared. Yeah. I'm going to take that step through, you know, a fear. And I'm going to commit to finding out more about, you know, the divorce process. I'm going to read books. I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and my discomfort zone, which is what I call the comfort zone, because it's where you're smaller. And I'm going to get into my supposed divorce monkey discomfort zone, which is actually the comfort zone, because that's where the magic happens. Yeah. And we say yes to ourselves. So writing your commitments to yourself, your intentions. I intend to be a kind person. I intend to be cooler than my ex. If you've got like a difficult ex or a difficult spouse, you know, just be the bigger person. Yeah. And then know at the end of this process, you can say to yourself, do you know what? I honor myself. I was cool through this. I was kind through this. Nobody can take that away from you. And you don't want to be that person in years to come who goes, why am I, you know, and you ask somebody and you say to them, you know, oh, you're divorced. And then you can just feel like this anger thing. Do you want to be that person? Yeah. So start setting your intentions now, start doing the work and committing to you. Okay. So just going to, oh, was that the one? 1, 2, 2. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so thriving or surviving, you know, maybe at the top of this page of intentions and commitments and all this stuff, you're going to put, do I want to thrive or do I just want to survive? Survival is focusing on your end figure and thinking that's all I've got. Yeah. You don't know what is going to happen in your world. You don't know what is going to happen in life, who you're going to meet, what's going to happen, what job you're going to get, business you're going to build, anything like that. And I'm going to be going on to the list in the next slide on things to look at. So just get really clear. What are you most fearful of? Yeah, maybe it's, as I mentioned before, thoughts, maybe it's words, maybe it's people just being unkind to you, maybe you're not. You fear shining your lovely light. You know, who am I to be shiny and successful and, you know, abundant and, you know, who am I? You know, you see everybody else like going, yeah, I manifested this and I said I wanted that. And I put it on my manifest board and this is, why can't you do that? Yeah. What is stopping you? And if it's you that's stopping you, start building your confidence by getting yourself into a really good place, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, if you want to go there as well. Yeah. Actions. What can you do now to help yourself And on the workbook, there's loads and loads of instructions and lots of like months and goals and things like that, and how to sort them out. So what can you do now to help yourself? What can you do now tonight? You know, go to bed early. Can you do that? Can you just go, do you know what? I'm just not going to tidy up this, and I'm just going to go to bed early and give myself a night's sleep. Yeah. Maybe get off my phone and pick up a book I've had by the side of my bed for ages. That is how you thrive. When we start looking after ourselves and we start like refilling and replenishing our batteries, you say yes to yourself. And when you say yes to yourself, you become more positive, and things attract. You become like Velcro to more good stuff because you're saying yes to yourself. Yeah. Okay. Outcome. How do you see and what do you see your future looking like? You know, and it's hard when you're in the thick of it. You're like, literally, I don't know. So I'm just going to leave you with this. And if anybody's seen any of these before, you will have heard this, but consider it a reminder. So I remember when I was going through a divorce, and my divorce, and it was in autumn. And I remember there was this big ploughed field, all these big furrows, yeah. And beyond it was this green valley. And I remember walking the dogs one day and thinking, oh my goodness me, I want to get to that green valley. And if you see the divorce days as a furrow, each day or each week as a furrow that you've got to cross over, you've got to walk over. And sometimes you get, you know, that sticky mud that sticks to your boots. And some days it feels heavier because there's lots of mud sticking to your boots. And other days it feels lighter because suddenly, amazingly, you wake up and the mud's dropped off. Yeah. So some days are tougher, some days aren't. That's just, life's not linear, you know, it's with everything, including divorce. And the thing is about this ploughed field is just hold that focus. Like, I'm going to get to that beautiful green, verdant, lush, gorgeous valley, but I've got to walk through this field. And if any of you are thinking that you might want to do a little sneaky one around the outside but not do the walk, that sneaky, cheeky, like cheating way, that never stops. And you end up becoming that person that's still so angry in the future because you got to do the work over these furrows. And it's a kicker, right? Because, you know, you're exhausted, you're doing a load of work, your life's fallen apart, and you've got to do personal work on top. But this is an opportunity. Okay. So moving forwards, and you'll get these on slides, is what I would love you to do now, or this evening, or when you see it on playback, is just write down these headings, just home and family. You might want to get a big board or something, or, you know, a canvas, and write these different headings on the different areas, and write down 5 things that you want to have happen, that you see yourself, that you feel yourself doing. Now, this might be home and family, like finding a new property. Like, imagine, have a look on the internet sites, right? Find your dream home, you know, in an area you'd like to live in. Just imagine what it would be like to live in your own home, to feel safe, to have your children, to have your own garden, to decorate it how you want. You know, if you're a fairy-like person, you can have them out throughout the year, whatever you want to do. Yeah. Feel into that. What would it feel like to have people around that you didn't have to tread on eggshells, or you didn't have to worry about family lunches and people, all this lovely stuff. Business and financial abundance, you know, put 5 things in there that you would like to do. You know, my year was like, I want to get my book out. I want my book to sell this many copies. I want my online course that's going to go with the book to sell this many. Yeah. Start putting some numbers down, start putting it out there and just going, right, and now I'm going to work towards it. And then just look down there and find one to start off with. Love and relationship, you might not be in that space, but you know what? Just feel how nice it would be to be in a relationship where you weren't arguing, you have more common ground moving forwards, maybe your kids got on well, all this lovely stuff, yeah? You can still go, what would it feel like to be in this place? Health and well-being. Last night, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, it's on Divorce Goddess. I went to a hot yoga class, actually in Chelsea. And literally it was like 40 degrees. And I was like, my body just feels really older. I really need to sort of stretch my body out. And I went and did a hot yoga class, and it was amazing. I haven't done it for about 8 years, and I'm so pleased I did it. So like, what can you do? Put yourself out of your comfort zone, try stuff that people are going, oh no, I couldn't do that. And part of me goes, I'm absolutely going to do that. You know, try cold swimming, you know, fun adventures. You know, go and do a retreat. I've found a retreat in Scotland, a Wim Hof retreat for a client for 3 days. And, you know, so they're going to go and do that. They can like have some fun with life, even though you're going through a divorce. See the craziness in life, see the mischief, all that fun you can have, and book it into your diary. Okay. Don't wait until you're exhausted, you're angry, and then you might have mediation, or a letter lands, a Friday letter, whatever lands, and you're just like, and then it all piles in. You do the work now. Okay, I think that's pretty much me and the podcast. So the podcast, I've got some really good guests coming on, and yeah, and that's kind of that, and obviously coaching and whatever else. So thank you very much for listening. If you've got any questions, I am absolutely here. I'm really happy to help.
Perfect. Thank you, Tosh. It's really interesting though, because obviously, you know, when Rebecca's got her mediation hat on, and you being a coach, and I probably deal with kind of, when I was looking at Rebecca's graph, if you like, I'm kind of more orange and red clients, probably more than the green ones. When I look at all of that, I think we all deal with very different aspects, and yet when I listen to both of you talk, there is so much of it that I was like, oh, I say that, but just slightly differently. And I wrote a couple of them down, and I don't know, it might just be that we spend far too much time together, and that I've played you both.
Or just that great minds think alike. Maybe we all come from a very compassionate place, supportive place. I think that's
definitely. So it's really interesting what you were talking about, overwhelm. And you know, in first meetings I have with clients, that's one of the first things we'll talk about, is that, because often they want to know, well, what's going to happen? What are all the possibilities that could happen in my divorce? And I mean, we could go on for 3 or 4 hours if we were going to go down every single route, but all that's going to do is lead to complete overwhelm. And so my advice in those sessions is always to just do your research and find your team. So do your research in that, find out sort of, and this is where Rebecca and her ladder comes in, because I'll always talk about do your research and then work out what's your first step, and take your first step and then work out, okay, what's my next step, and then take your next step, rather than looking all the way up at the ladder, which might feel really, really long and far away. So, you know, that was a really interesting, because I use kind of those as well. And then finding your team. So, you know, we've spoken about there's lots of different ways of doing things, and you might have more than one person involved. It's not the case that you just have to go to a lawyer, or you just have to go to a mediator, or you just have to have those conversations around the table. So, you know, find that team of people, and it might be your yoga instructor or whoever it is, you know, find that team of people that are there to support your well-being and then help you get through this time in your life. And then the other thing that you said was about the genie in the lamp and the 3 magic wishes. And I tend to say, if I had a magic wand and I could wave it around, what is it that you would want? And then we work back from it. I don't always get there, because I don't unfortunately have that magic wand, because I think we'd all be much richer if we did, and we could make it that straightforward for everybody. But so it was really interesting actually listening to both of those chats and seeing it from different perspectives.
The other thing that's really similar, I think, between us is the language that we use. You may dabble more in the red areas. I tend to stick to more of the green, you know, the paler areas. But I also act as a solicitor, and because I am a non-court specialist, when I get a case that goes to court, it's usually really high conflict. So this is it's a really, really tricky. I would treat the solicitor who is acting for the other person, I don't call them the other side, with just as much respect and kindness as I would talk to people in mediation. It just doesn't change. And the really interesting thing is that the courts and the judiciary, the government, I suspect, are finally cottoning on to this, that kind of thing saves them money. So the president of the family division in the UK has made it his mission, I suppose, to make court the last place that people should go, and he's commissioned all sorts of reports, one of which is the language report just prepared by the Family Solutions Group. And when you read that with your lawyer head on, it's so different from what we were taught on the law course or at university. But being nice to people in a letter, why should that feel like it's something extraordinary? So that's really quite interesting. And the teamwork that you picked up on there, Lisa. So that ladder, the process ladder that I mentioned first, the color-coded one, we pick bits and pieces from each of that. You may need different parts of different people in your team at different stages. So people come to me in mediation, they may have a really sticky point that they just can't get past. Doesn't mean they need to rush off to court. They may ask an arbitrator and then they come back and they've dealt with that issue. So I'm thinking maybe something like pre-acquired wealth or an inheritance or very short marriage with no children. So there are particular aspects of that they just can't decide for themselves. They just can't say yes. So they'll go off and they'll get their arbitral award, and that frees them up then to come in and talk about other things. Or I might have in a meeting a family consultant. So I work with a couple of family consultants on tricky children cases. I might also have a financial neutral come in. So there may be 3, 4, 5 of us in the meeting because it is a team. You think how long it takes you to plan a wedding, and why do we expect this separation to happen in a couple of months? You can plan a wedding for 18 months, 2 years. And we're doing the same here. We're getting it right. We're making sure that everything, that the outcome you eventually have is the right one for you, and you've used the right language so that you're able to talk on the doorstep in the future. And it's basic kindness.
Yeah.
I did see something, an article on LinkedIn or a blog post, and they took, I mean, aside from the fact whether you want to go to court or not, actually when you get to the courts, they're kind of got buckets full of water, the leaks, the roofs are all leaking, there's no money being put in. Well, that was a sort of blanket article, but it was like, that's before you even get there, that it's pretty grim there anyway. And then to be somewhere where you are then having somebody else make a decision about your children, it's like, that's kind of a sobering thought.
Yeah, we get a lot of people coming back to mediation after they've been to court. They may have got a child arrangements order, they may have acted for themselves, didn't really quite understand what the court could do, or what, more to the point, what it can't do. Can't fix the relationship, can't make them talk. So they've got a little piece of paper that one can wave to the other, but it doesn't fix the core problems. And that is, how the heck are we going to parent our children?
And that's that field they've got to go across, because going to the court is walking around the outside, and it's
the contemplation ladder again, isn't it? It's falling back, and actually let's learn from these things that haven't worked in the past. They ain't going to work now.
No. But I think it's like I think it's a general sort of just change of mindset. We've all been in society for so long, and I think it, with any change, it just takes time and understanding and patience and good, and tools and just
finding the right fit. Because Lisa, you probably the same when you're your solicitor role. It's a good thing for people to try out and speak to lots of people, because not everybody is the same, and not everybody will talk the same talk or write the same, write this kind of letter. So it's really important, isn't it, for them to understand what they're getting into. Do you still pick up the phone to solicitors and they're shocked that you've picked up the phone?
Yeah, often they don't answer.
Yeah.
No, it's quite right though. It's almost like speed dating your lawyer or speed dating your mediator, you know, ring round. And I will say to clients on the phone, particularly if I'm the first person that they've spoken to, you know, you are free to go and talk. You know, I'm not the right lawyer for everybody. You are free to go and, you know, chat to a few people. We do things differently, you know, make sure that you've got the right, you know, you've got the right fit, because you've got to find people and find that team that you can work with. Because you've got to trust them.
Yeah, and they've got to speak your language, whatever language that may be. And some people like, you know, they like the email, they like the bullet points, they work well with that kind of response. But some people don't. They like to talk on the phone. So it's really important that you find the person who can talk your language.
I think that, yeah, if it feels right, it is right. You know, just being mindful of those divorce mind monkeys, you know, saying, is this the lawyer that's going to spank your ex and deplete your, you know, your pot at the end of it and ending up in court? Or is this somebody who feels like they're on the same, you know, on the same level as me in terms of thinking?
Yeah, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, then it's usually a duck. So whether that's a good feeling that you're having or a bad feeling, trust your instinct. You know, ducks are ducks. Yeah. I really like these animals. I had the dead fish earlier. I've got the duck now.
I'm laughing because it was one that I used last week. Somebody was saying, like, how would you describe yourself? And I was like, I'm a bit like a duck, but I kind of meant it. And afterwards they said to me, don't you mean a swan? I was like, oh, I don't know if I feel like a swan. A bit like a duck in that, you know, they float across the water and they look all with calm, and then underneath it's like their legs are going like crazy because they're juggling all the plates and doing, getting all the stuff done. But no, it's been really helpful, both of you. So I can't see, unless Kate's going to tell me otherwise, that we've got any questions. So unless anybody wants to unmute or pop something quickly in the Q&A or the chat box.
I've just sent my PowerPoint over to you because I added on the stop and the halt. So if you wanted to send that out as well with Tosh's stuff, then I think that, you know, if people can find that helpful and use it to write on, then absolutely fine with me. Okay, perfect. No, I don't think we've got any questions. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us again today, taking this time out to run the session. It's been really, really helpful. There will be a follow-up email that comes out to everybody that's signed up, which will have the workbook and all of the slides that you've seen today. Hope you found it really, really useful. Feel free to, you know, pass it on to any friends or family members that you know that might be going through difficulties and might need a bit of support going into the new year as well. Okay, so happy new year, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.